Let's be real for a second. If you were sold a ticket to an underground bunker promising safety from a nuclear apocalypse, you'd probably expect the biggest threat to be the radiation outside, right? Wrong. In the wasteland, the real danger wasn't the bombs. It was the landlords. Almost every vault dweller who signed their life away to Vault-Tec didn't just die. They were liquidated, experimented on, or socially engineered into madness. But a few unlucky souls actually survived to see the surface. And honestly, their stories are less about triumph of the human spirit and more about how Murphy's Law applies even after the end of the world. So let's dissect the fate of these survivors, starting with the one that started it all. Vault 13, the control vault. In scientific terms, a control group is supposed to be the baseline variables. No weird stuff, just people living life. But because this is Vault-Tec, normal is just a setting on the washing machine they drown you in. The residents of Vault 13 got the short end of the stick repeatedly. It starts in 2161 when their water chip breaks. Now, for the non-survivalists out there, a water chip is basically the iPhone charger of life support systems. It's a tiny piece of tech that, when it breaks, turns your marvel of engineering into a concrete tomb. The overseer sends out one guy, the vault dweller, to fix it. This poor sap spends 5 months fighting super mutants, dodging radiation, and probably eating dog food that expired in 1999, only to return with the chip and save the day. And what is his reward? A parade? A shiny medal? No. The overseer looks him dead in the eye and exiles him. You're a hero, and that's the problem. People might want to leave if they see you survived. It is the ultimate corporate HR move, firing the most competent employee because they make management look bad. But here is where human psychology kicks in. You can't just remove a hero figure and expect everyone to go back to their spreadsheets. The vault fractures. One group, furious at the betrayal, storms out to the wasteland. The rest? They overthrow the overseer. But instead of electing a new leader, they buy a mainframe computer from the Brotherhood of Steel to run the place. That's right. They looked at human leadership, said hard pass, and decided to live under an algorithm. Honestly, considering modern politics, I can't even blame them. For 80 years, it actually works. It turns out a cold, unfeeling machine is better at urban planning than a human with an ego. But in 2241, the Enclave shows up. If you don't know the Enclave, imagine the US government, but strip away the PR department and give everyone plasma weapons and a god complex. They send an all-clear signal. The vault opens, excited to breathe fresh air, and 3 people are immediately turned into Swiss cheese by miniguns. The Enclave claims they were resisting arrest, which is the post-apocalyptic equivalent of sprinkling crack on a body. The rest are kidnapped, flown to an oil rig, and used as lab rats for FEV testing. The few who remain are wiped out when the rig explodes. So, the legacy of Vault 13 isn't survival. It's proof that doing everything right doesn't matter when the guy with the bigger gun wants your DNA. Oh, and the cherry on top? The vault gets repopulated by intelligent death claws. Nature really does heal, just with giant lizard claws. Now, if Vault 13 was a tragedy of circumstances, Vault 8 is a tragedy of personality. This is the success story. They had a G, E, C, K, they opened on time, and they built Vault City. On the surface, it looks like a utopia: clean streets, advanced medicine, working toilets. But scratch the surface, and you find the HOA from hell. Vault City proves that if you give a group of people superior technology and isolation, they don't become benevolent. They become insufferable elitists. By 2241, they've established a caste system that would make a feudal lord blush. If you're a citizen, you get rights. If you're an outsider, you're trash. They look at the irradiated peasants outside their walls not as people to help, but as biological waste. They even treat the ghouls in the nearby town of Geckoho, literally provide their power like a cockroach infestation. It's a classic survivalist trap, the lifeboat mentality. We made it, you didn't, therefore we are better. They recreated the worst parts of pre-war classism because apparently, the apocalypse didn't kill the human urge to feel superior to the neighbors. Vault City is safe, sure, but it's a sterile, soulless monument to the idea that, I got mine, screw you. Then we have Vault 15, which was less of a shelter and more of a reality TV show gone wrong. The experiment? Stuff people of wildly different cultures, religions, and ideologies into a box and see if they sing Kumbaya or kill each other. Spoiler alert, they didn't sing. This is basic sociology Dunbar's number. Suggests we can only maintain stable relationships with about 150 people. Throw in radical ideological differences and a sealed door, and you have a recipe for tribal warfare. When they finally burst out of the vault, they didn't just leave. They exploded into three distinct philosophical directions. One group, the optimists, founded Shady Sands and eventually the New California Republic, NCR. They decided to bring back taxes, laws, and bureaucracy, proving some people really do miss the DMV. Another group became the cons, raiding and pillaging because they decided that might makes right. The third group became the vipers, who started worshipping snakes because, well, isolation makes you weird. Vault 15 proves that survival is ideological. The same trauma created nation builders, raiders, and cultists. It shows that when society collapses, we don't just scramble for food, we scramble for meaning, even if that meaning involves poisonous reptiles. Speaking of scrambling for meaning, let's talk about the psychological torture chamber known as Vault 101. The experiment here was simple and terrifying. Never open the door. Ever. The overseer is an absolute dictator, and the outside world is taught to be a myth, a hellscape where nothing survives. It's basically North Korea in a basement. For 200 years, this works. Generational indoctrination is a powerful drug. The residents truly believe the vault is the entire universe. But here is the thing about total information control. It's fragile. It works until one person, James, decides to leave to buy cigarettes or save the wasteland, and doesn't come back. When he leaves and the world doesn't end, the lie evaporates. The vault fractures into chaos. But the real tragedy is the survivors themselves. Even if they escape, they are functionally children. They have zero immune system for the wasteland's bacteria, zero street smarts, and zero concept of how cruel the world is. Vault-Tec didn't just imprison them, they weaponized their ignorance. They created a society of people perfectly adapted to a world that doesn't exist. And finally, for this section, we have to touch on the one that keeps me up at night. Vault 77. This wasn't a social experiment, it was a torture method. One man, one crate of puppets. That's it. Isolation is the quickest way to break a human mind. We are social animals. Without feedback, our brains start hallucinating to fill the silence. This guy didn't just talk to the puppets. The puppets started talking back. Specifically, the Vault Boy puppet. It became the voice of his id, his darkest impulses. He murders the king puppet, blaming it on the Vault Boy, creating a dissociate narrative to handle his own snapping sanity. When he finally escapes, he isn't a man anymore. He's a myth. The puppet man of the wasteland. Slaver-shardened criminals who kill for Funa are terrified of him. Think about that. You have to be truly unhinged to make a raider unsettled. Vault 77 shows that you don't need radiation to make a monster. Just give a guy enough time alone with his own thoughts and a sock with googly eyes, and he'll become something worse than a death claw. If Vault 77 was a quiet psychological breakdown, Vault 34 was the exact opposite. Imagine giving 1,000 people unlimited ammunition, locking them in a concrete box, and telling them that conflict resolution is just a fancy word for reloading. Vault 34 was basically a Second Amendment fever dream. The armory wasn't just stocked, it was overstocked. They had more guns than food. The logic here is baffling. It's like trying to solve a house fire by throwing hand grenades at it. Inevitably, the residents got bored, got angry, and decided that the best way to vote on infrastructure policy was with high explosive ordnance. The result? They blew up their own reactor. The survivors, who eventually became the boomers, looked at the irradiated ruin of their home and learned exactly one lesson. We didn't use enough gun. They migrated to Nellis Air Force Base and adopted a foreign policy of explode anything that moves. They are the ultimate isolationists. If you step on their lawn, it rains artillery shells. It's a functional society, sure, but it's built on a level of paranoia that would make a conspiracy theorist say, "Hey man, chill out." They survived by deciding the rest of the world wasn't worth talking to, only targeting. But while explosions are loud, silence is worse. Vault 11 is the gold standard for how to destroy a human soul without ever touching it. The setup. The Vault computer demands one human sacrifice every year or it kills everyone. It is the trolley problem gamified. The residents, terrified, set up a democratic election to choose the victim. It turns into a political nightmare campaign blocks formed not to win office, but to nominate their enemies for execution. Vote for Dave. He steals lunches. Takes on a horrifying new meaning. Eventually, after years of slaughter, a civil war leaves only 5 people alive. These 5, broken and exhausted, refuse to kill anyone else. They stand together, ready to die. And then the computer speaks up. Congratulations, you passed. The experiment was to see if they would disobey. The door opens. They were free to leave. But the weight of knowing they murdered their friends and families for nothing was too much. 4 of them committed suicide right there in the entrance hall. The 5th walked into the wasteland alone. Vault-Tec proved that you don't need to kill people to destroy them. You just have to make them kill each other and then tell them it was a prank. Let's pivot to biology, because Mother Nature has a nasty sense of humor too. Vault 22 was the Green Vault. Sustainable farming, advanced botany was supposed to be the whole foods of the apocalypse. Then they introduced a pest control fungus. In the real world, introducing a new species to fix an old problem usually results in Australia's cane toad situation. In Fallout, it results in spore zombies. The fungus jumped species, infecting the residents and turning them into walking, wheezing chia pets. The horror of Vault 22 isn't just the monsters, it's the claustrophobia. The plants overgrew everything. The air became thick with spores. The survivors didn't just die, they were metabolized. A few escaped to spread the infection, but the vault itself remains a lush, green tomb. It's a reminder that organic doesn't always mean healthy. Sometimes it means horrifying parasitic takeover. However, not every vault blindly followed the script. Vault 81 is the rare case where someone actually read the terms and conditions and clicked decline. The original overseer, Dr. Olivia Valenti, saw that her vault was designed to test infectious diseases on the population. Instead of being a corporate shill, she sabotaged the experiment, locked away the scientists, and let the residents live normal lives. And it worked. Vault 81 is stable, clean, and safe. But here's the catch. Because they never faced the trauma of the wasteland or the horror of an experiment, they stagnated. They are a time capsule, terrified of the outside world, trading through a crack in the door. They survived, but they didn't grow. They are the 30-year-old living in their parents' basement because the rent outside is too high, safe, fed, but fundamentally arrested in development. Then there's the lonely frozen hell of Vault 111. This experiment was cryogenic stasis. The residents were frozen, intended to be thawed out later. But thanks to the Institute needing a baby with pristine DNA, because kidnapping is apparently easier than synthesis, everyone's life support was cut except for the sole survivor. Imagine waking up with a hangover that lasted 200 years, only to find everyone you ever knew is a popsicle and your son is now an old man running a technocratic cabal. The sole survivor isn't a part of a community. They are a walking ghost, a relic of a world that is dead and buried. But at least the sole survivor got to wake up. The residents of Vault 112 are trapped in the Sims from hell. Dr. Stanislaus Braun, a sadist who makes Jigsaw look like a guidance counselor, trapped his residents in a virtual reality simulation called Tranquility Lane. He plays God, killing them, wiping their memories, and resetting the simulation for 2 centuries. It's the ultimate gamer rage fantasy brought to life. They aren't living. They are content for a bored madman. When you finally pull the plug, the survivors don't cheer. They just die, their real bodies having withered away ages ago. It's a mercy kill. On the flip side, we have Vault 76, the control vault for the best and brightest. No experiments, just high achievers set loose after 25 years. In theory, they should have conquered the world. In practice, they walked out into Appalachia region infested with scorched plagues, dragons made of bats, and 0 human NPCs. The tragedy of Vault 76 isn't that they failed, it's that they were overqualified for a world that didn't care. They were architects in a world that needed exterminators. They didn't turn evil, they just got ground down by the sheer, relentless grind of survival. It's the burnout generation of the apocalypse. Finally, let's talk about the rich. Vault 118. A vault for the ultra-wealthy who wanted to wait out the end of the world in luxury. To survive, they transferred their brains into robo-brains. So you have a hotel full of eccentric, wealthy robots who've been stuck together for 200 years. And what happens? A murder mystery. Ezra Parker embezzled money, which is worthless now, by the way, and killed someone to cover it up. Even with immortality and robot bodies, they couldn't let go of their petty human greed. They are stuck in a loop of status and wealth that no longer exists. It's poetic, really. You can buy a ticket to the future, but you can't buy a personality transplant. So, looking at the roster of Vault-Tec survivors, the conclusion is bleak. The lucky ones died in the blast. The survivors were merely the toys left in the sandbox for a corporation that didn't even survive its own shareholders meeting. Whether they became raiders, robots, isolationists, or corpses, they all proved one thing. Vault-Tec didn't sell survival. They sold coffins with a view.